Months, if not years, of hard work by the Indian Space Research Organization, and now taking a look at that minute-by-minute developments that took place since yesterday until today, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to boost the morale of scientists and hailed the Chandrayaan 2 mission in this special report.
9:30 p.m. Friday. Prime Minister at Bengaluru Airport. The whole spectacle began with PM Narendra Modi arriving at the Bengaluru airport to witness the historic moon landing. 10 p.m. Friday. Isro last-minute monitoring. Isro's control room was meanwhile teeming with action as scientists kept conducting last-minute checks. As the time for the crucial descent neared, tension was palpable. 1:22 a.m. Saturday, Prime Minister reaches control room. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived at Isro's control room at 1:22 a.m. just before the touchdown process began. 1:37 a.m. Saturday, Vikram lander begins its descent. Vikram lander started its final descent towards the moon at 1:37 a.m. as India watched with bated breath. 1:39 a.m. Saturday, rough braking phase begins. Minutes later, the rough braking phase was initiated, aimed to reduce the Vikram lander's speed from 21,600 kilometers per hour to 7 kilometers per hour. 1:40 a.m. Saturday, 4 liquid engines fire successfully. All seemed to be going well as 4 liquid engines fired successfully at 1:40 a.m. to put brakes on the lander. 1:50 a.m. Saturday, fine braking phase begins. After that, the fine braking phase began to stabilize the lander just before landing. 1:52 a.m. Saturday, lander to ground signal lost. But soon, the mission faced some snag, with communication being lost with the lander when it was merely 2.1 kilometers from the moon's surface. 1:55 a.m. Saturday, scientists wait with bated breath. Everyone at Isro waited with bated breath to hear back from the lander. 1:59 a.m. Saturday, Isro chief briefs Prime Minister Modi. Amid a tense moment, Isro chief K. Sivan apprised Prime Minister Modi of the developing situation.
Normal performance was observed up to an altitude of 2.1 kilometer. The communication from lander to ground station was lost. The data is being analyzed.
2:19 a.m. Saturday. Isro, till 2.1 kilometer, it was all normal. Clearing the air, Isro's chief K. Sivan said that the mission faced a snag and the space agency is still analyzing data. 2:19 a.m. Saturday. The Prime Minister says, be courageous. Prime Minister Modi, in turn, boosted the morale of the scientists and hailed the big achievement. The Prime Minister said, this is the moment to be courageous and what Isro has achieved is no ordinary feat.
मेरी तरफ से आपको बहुत बधाई है, बहुत उत्तम सेवा की है आपने देश ने, आपने बहुत बड़ी सेवा की है विज्ञान की और आपने बहुत बड़ी सेवा की है मानव जात की और आप ही के पुरुषार्थ से फिर से देश खुशी बनाने लग जाएगा, मुझे विश्वास है. Wish you all the best.
3:10 a.m. Saturday. Isro. Data still being analyzed. Isro called off its press briefing and said they were analyzing the data. 8 a.m. Saturday. Prime Minister arrives at Isro headquarters. Prime Minister Modi returns to Isro headquarters and addresses the scientists, calling them India's pride.
I can proudly say that the effort was worth it, and so was the teachings will always remain with us. We will look back at this journey and effort with great satisfaction. The learnings from today will make us stronger and better.
8:35 a.m. Saturday, Prime Minister congratulates our scientists. Prime Minister shook hands with every scientist and applauded their efforts. 8:39 a.m. Saturday, Prime Minister consoles ISRO chief. Just as Prime Minister was leaving the ISRO control center, he hugs ISRO chief K. Sivan, who breaks down. Prime Minister Modi gets emotional and consoles K. Sivan. With Shiv Arur, Nolan Pinto and Raj Chagappa in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, India Today.
Hours after lander Vikram lost contact with the Isro control room in Bengaluru headquarters, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the scientists and the entire team behind the mission. Prime Minister reassured the Isro scientists that obstacles will only strengthen the country's resolve and that the entire nation will always stand by our space heroes. Listen in to what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said.
A hug worth a million words. Prime Minister thanking and reassuring the scientists at Isro for making India proud once again. Escorting the Prime Minister out of the Isro Center in Bengaluru, Chief K. Sivan shook hands with the Prime Minister and broke down. A soft tap on the shoulder, and then the Prime Minister got emotional too, pulling Isro Chief closer and hugging him tight. Sending a message on behalf of 1.2 billion Indians. India is proud of its Isro scientists, and this is just, if anything, a momentary setback.
साथियों, परिणाम अपनी जगह, लेकिन मुझे और पूरे देश को अपने वैज्ञानिक, इंजीनियर, आप सभी के प्रयासों पर गर्व है। मैंने आपको रात में भी कहा था, और अभी फिर कह रहा हूं, मैं आपके साथ।
40 kilometers away from the landing site. So all going well.
Adding another feather to its hat, Isro neared a perfect landing on the moon. Before the communication center lost contact with lander Vikram when it was just 2.1 kilometers away from the lunar surface.
We expect at the end of this.
हमें सबक लेना है, सीखना है, आगे ही बढ़ते जाना है, और लक्ष्य की प्राप्ति तक रुकना नहीं। हम निश्चित रूप से सफल होंगे। हम मिशन के हर प्रयास में भी और उसके बाद के हर प्रयास में भी कामयाबी हमारे साथ हो।
The Prime Minister reassuring not just our scientists, but the entire nation. Obstacles will only strengthen our resolve.
आप लोग मक्खन पे लकीर करने वाले नहीं, पत्थर पे लकीर करने वाले। You came as close as you could. Stay steady and look ahead.
Vikram lander descent was as planned.
An ISRO official said 95% of the mission is a success and ISRO gets back to work. The entire nation stands with our space heroes.
Communication from the lander to the ground stations were lost.
आप अपने आप में प्रेरणा का समंदर है, प्रेरणा का जीता जागता स्वरूप है, और इसलिए इस प्रेरणा की पल है मेरे लिए, जहां निराशा को वैज्ञानिक मन आशा में परिवर्तित कर देता है।
And as the Prime Minister said, these are moments to be courageous, and courageous India shall be.
A very emotional time. There was exhilaration at first as each step was passed successfully, until that moment of reckoning when the Vikram lander was just about 2.1 kilometers above the surface of the moon, and when when things didn't quite go the way the scientists and the team here at ISRO wanted them to. It was filled with emotion. You could see the body language. There were people holding their heads. The exhilaration and the quiet confidence that had otherwise pervaded the control room suddenly became one of tension, of nervousness.
With Shiv Arur, Nolan Pinto, Nagarjun Dwarkanath in Bengaluru, India Today.
India Today's consulting editor Shiv Arur joins me for some perspective. So Shiv, how does this really affect the moon mission if the lander is really lost? Tell us.
Well, the seriousness of what happened, cannot be downplayed. We can't call it a failure, but it is important to acknowledge the reality of what happened. If the lander has indeed been lost, and remember that we still don't have a final confirmation from the ISRO about the fate of the lander, but if it indeed has been lost, then all of the experiments that were to be conducted by the lander, obviously, and Pragyaan rover, will not be completed, and that the experiments that will be conducted or at once the spacecraft arrived, around the moon, will only be confined to what the orbiter can achieve. Now, the orbiting vehicle itself has 8 instruments on board. It has advanced cameras. It has enough on its plate in terms of scientific experiments and a lot of things that it needs to tick off and log as far as the moon's surface is concerned. So the moon mission theoretically will be incomplete, obviously, if the lander has been lost, because there were certain assigned duties, to the lander and to the rover. But overall, the moon mission is definitely still very much on, and the orbiter, remember, has a mission duration of in excess of 1 year. So there's a long way ahead for Chandrayaan 2.
And also, Shiv, in any way, is this connected, or can it have an impact on the human space flight program, which is the Gaganyaan? Can that be affected by such a development at all?
It's a good question, and it remains to be seen whether the setback in the final phase of Chandrayaan 2 will have any kind of bearing on either Gaganyaan or any of the other missions that the ISRO may be planning, including possibly a Chandrayaan 3. Why not? Where they might try to correct these wrongs and have a picture-perfect finish, of a soft landing of a vehicle on the moon, very much like the Vikram. The Gaganyaan mission is vastly different because it's India's first manned mission, its own manned mission into space, into low Earth orbit for 7 days. The one similarity, of course, is that it will also be, launched into space by the GSLV Mark III, which was totally validated as a robust workhorse of a reliable rocket in the Chandrayaan 2 mission. So, in that sense, that's actually good news. But what else the lessons are from Chandrayaan 2 that may have a bearing or an impact of Gaganyaan or other missions, it's still too early to tell. It will only be apparent once the final analysis of what went wrong really comes out.
And Shiv Arur had been tracking all the latest developments through the night and in the morning. Now remember, while of course it was about the space and the scientists were tracking at the ISRO headquarters in Bengaluru, even on social media the country united to send messages of appreciation to the scientists community. My colleague Ankit Tyagi with all the reactions on Chandrayaan 2 on social media. Take a look at this.
Well, it has been a stellar performance, to say the least. Let's not be myopic about what happened in the last 2.5 minutes of the Vikram lander's descent, but largely ISRO has been able to achieve a lot of important goals from the Chandrayaan 2 mission. And, there is massive outpouring of support for the ISRO scientists from all across the country. President Ramnath Kovind also took to Twitter. He said with Chandrayaan 2 mission, the entire team of ISRO has shown exemplary commitment and courage. We hope best for the ISRO. In fact, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu also tweeted, "I salute Isro scientists, engineers and everyone else associated with Chandrayaan 2 for their hard work and dedication in trying to conquer new frontiers in space exploration." Well, this is something, Podomi, and we have always seen how divided the political parties are on most issues. But this is the Chandrayaan mission has brought all the political parties firmly behind ISRO. Rahul Gandhi, former president of the Congress party, also tweeted saying congratulations to the team at ISRO for their incredible work on the Chandrayaan 2 moon mission. Your passion and dedication is an inspiration to every Indian. Your hard work will not go in vain. Actor Kamala Hassan also tweeted, "This does not tantamount to failure in research and development. There will be learning curve. This is that precise, precious learning moment." Well, you know, I just want to take off from this because if you go on and see what Dr. Abdul Kalam, the former Dr. APJ Kalam, the former president and one of the pioneers in space research for India is concerned, he also said it's never about the failure. It only teaches you more, only makes you better for your future endeavors.
So a question that everybody wants answers to: what exactly happened there at about 1:30 p.m. Here's a look now at exactly what happened at 1:52 a.m. What went wrong, and more importantly, how did ISRO lost contact with the lander Vikram?
The Chandrayaan 2 spacecraft was eventually captured.
It was no ordinary feat. Indian scientists pulled off a near-perfect moon landing, save for some last-minute snags. It all began as planned, with attendance from Prime Minister Modi and selected children from across the country. The lander Vikram, which was orbiting the moon in a very close orbit, began its descent onto the lunar surface. The much-anticipated descent began at 1:37 a.m. The onboard thrusters of Vikram fired up to bring its speed from a mind-boggling 21,000 kilometers per hour to a breezy under 20 kilometers per hour. As ISRO scientists continued to monitor the downward journey, the lander cruised through the rare and gaseous lunar atmosphere, hurtling towards the moon. There were tense moments, followed by applause by the scientists as the lander passed the rough descent phase. Advancing smoothly into the final descent phase, where the lander fine-tunes its journey and scouts for the landing spot. All was well till the lander descended to an altitude of 2.1 kilometers above lunar surface. There was a hint that all is not well, with lander Vikram deviating slightly from its planned trajectory. The ISRO command center then suddenly lost contact with the lander at 1:52 a.m.
थोड़े से क्षण जहां पे हमें आंकड़ों की प्राप्ति के लिए इंतजार करना पड़ रहा है.
Scientists waited for several tense minutes to re-establish contact. As minutes passed by, amid the anticipation, ISRO chief went to brief the Prime Minister on the latest situation. Moments later, ISRO chief made an announcement confirming the snag.
Vikram lander descent was as planned and normal performance was observed up to an altitude of 2.1 kilometer. Subsequently, the communications from the lander to ground station was lost.
The Chandrayaan spacecraft traveled 3.8 lakh kilometers from start till the point that it was hovering 2.1 kilometers above the lunar surface when the blackout actually took place and communications disappeared. Which means from start to that point, 2.1 kilometers above the surface of the moon, it was a picture-perfect mission. And after that, nobody knows.
ISRO later said that it is still analyzing data from lander.
Communication from the lander to the ground stations were lost. Data is being analyzed.
As efforts are on to hear back from the lander, a billion prayers are echoing for ISRO. The nation stands firmly, with the space agency proud of its achievement. Bureau Report, India Today.
Be courageous.
Let's get a view from our group editorial director, Raj Chengappa, who is there in Bengaluru. Now, Raj, before, of course, the communication was lost, how difficult, you tell us, was the final descent of the lander Vikram?
In this descent process, again, the first time that Isro is doing a lander and a rover. So everything is new technology, let's put it now. But let's put that down first. Now, the lander is moving at a speed of 6,000 kilometers per second. If you want to translate that and understand it, it is 7 times faster than a civilian aircraft like Indigo or SpiceJet would be traveling to take you to various places in the country. Now, at that speed, it is at a height of 30 kilometers. The mission at that time, what is called powered descent, is to firstly reduce the height of the lander, which is at 30 kilometers, and bring it to ground level, and secondly, to cut the speed. So there are two things that these scientists have to do, which is reduce the speed from this enormous speed that it is traveling at, and also to bring the level down. Now, these are very, very delicate maneuvers, and they take place in 3 phases.